Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Moving on to politics, where yesterday the Supreme Court issued a ruling in favor of former President Donald Trump on the issue of presidential immunity. For the first time in the history of the High Court, it ruled that presidents can never be prosecuted for acts within their core constitutional duties. In addition to that, the Supreme Court says presidents are presumed to be immune from prosecution for most of their official actions. President Biden responded, saying the conservative majority on the court has set a dangerous precedent. He added, quote, any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the aforementioned conservative majority, said a former president has, quote, absolute immunity, end quote, for acts within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. The decision leaves it to the lower courts to determine if most of the criminal acts Trump was accused of in the wake of the January 6th indictment are official or not. The ruling all but guarantees the case will not go to trial before the November 5th election. Are we surprised? Are we really, really surprised? But before I even get into all of that, let me say this, because as it regards Donald Trump, he posted on social media, because you know he always has something to say the minute he thinks anything works in his favor. Within minutes of the ruling, he said this: big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. That's what he said. No surprise there. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat out of New York, in a statement reacting to the ruling, said House Democrats, quote, will engage in aggressive oversight and legislative activity to ensure that the extreme far-right justices in the majority are brought into compliance with the Constitution. You see, let me try to be a little delicate here. I could say I told you so, but I won't. We're trying to act like the president is a normal person, that have normal rules and regulations and laws applicable to them just like everybody else. That's what we want to believe, okay? That's what we want to believe. Let me throw out a bunch of rhetorical questions for y'all. Do you, as an American citizen, just an ordinary American citizen, have the right to declare war on a nation? Do you have the right to do that? Do you have a right to withhold weapons to another power, another country, because you don't like how they're conducting their own war? Do you have the right to do most of these things that presidents can do, like signing stuff into law after Congress and Senate brings it to his desk? You have the right to do that? You know the answer to that question. Why are we acting like we don't know? The key to the ruling, as far as I'm concerned, by the 6 conservative justices, is they were basically talking about his actions as a president. He has the right to talk to the attorney general about whatever's going on. He has a right, you understand, if he wants to declare war about somebody without worrying about being prosecuted. Because if you're going to get prosecuted for something, that might influence your decision to be the commander-in-chief. And they're taking that into consideration. But rather than get into the technical mumbo-jumbo of all of this other stuff, it shows the damage when we've allowed ourselves to politicize our courts. I've always been in opposition towards the president or any administration picking Supreme Court justices. I think Supreme Court justices should have term limits. I don't think they should be allowed to stay in office for the remainder of their natural lives or until they retire. I think you should have maximum 20-year window as a Supreme Court justice. Every 20 years, there should be somebody else up in there by law. That's what I think. I don't believe it should be selected by either party. I think folks who are involved in the law, I'm not talking about a legislative body, I'm not talking about the House of Congress, I'm not talking about the Senate, I'm talking about separate and apart from them, Someone associated with the judiciary should be deciding who Supreme Court justices are. And it shouldn't be based on party affiliations. It shouldn't be conservative or liberal. That's my personal opinion. But rather than get into all of that, let me just say this. It's no surprise. It's no surprise. And when you see Biden going off and you see Hakeem Jeffries taking the position that he had, would he have said that had the ruling been in the favor of liberals? That's why we have to take it with a grain of salt. We can't trust any of them. Would you have said that if the ruling had leaned toward the liberal side? We know what Sonia Sotomayor said in her dissent. We know what Ketanji Brown Jackson said in her dissent. We get that. They're liberals and they feel a certain way. You're conservatives, you feel a certain way. You're conservative, you don't have any problem with this ruling for the most part. Well, if you're the liberal side, excuse me, what level of culpability are you willing to embrace because of this? Because this is the real reason I brought up the subject. You understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the Democrats are making the same mistake that they made with Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Now, I understand that Areva Martin, political analyst and what have you, I love her. I love her being on the show. I understand what she said yesterday when I asked this question about Bill Maher calling President Biden Ruth Bader Biden. She said there was no correlation. I beg to differ. I emphatically disagree with her. Let me remind y'all and rewind the clock. It's 2015, approaching 2016. Barack Obama is in office. The Obama administration desperately wants Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had health issues, by the way, God rest her soul. But she had health issues at the time. They desperately wanted her to retire so they could elect or select her successor for the Supreme Court. She refused. Why did she refuse to step down? Because according to numerous reports, she swore up and down Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump in the election. And she wanted Hillary Rodham Clinton, the first woman's president in the United States of America, had that happened. She wanted her to be able to select Ruth Bader Ginsburg's successor. And what happened? Hillary Rodham Clinton lost the election. Donald Trump won. Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't step down. So years later, while Donald Trump was in office, she passed away. God rest her soul. And because she passed away, Donald Trump was able to select her successor and two other justices. And as a result, instead of the majority being 5-4, because that's what it would have been had Ruth Bader Ginsburg stepped down and Barack Obama selected her successor, the court is now 6-3. What's happening right now? Biden shows up on a debate stage after months and months and months of scrutiny about his cognitive decline and what have you, agreeing to a presidential debate that has never really been this early. We usually see that after the Democratic or the Republican national conventions. He goes and he engages in a debate prior to all of that, clearly to prove a point, and ended up putting forth an absolute disastrous performance to the point where the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the New Yorker Magazine, along with various other folks within the Democratic Party and what have you, calling for him to step down and step aside so a Kamala Harris, a Wes Moore, a Gavin Newsom, or somebody can step in and go for the Democratic nomination to win the presidency of the United States of America. That is what is happening. How do we not see the correlation? Ruth Bader Ginsburg refuses to step aside. President Biden refuses to step aside. The Democrats go for it. It cost them a Supreme Court justice seat. The Democrats are going for this now. It may cost them the presidency. How do we not see the correlation? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just talking about it. I'm asking you. I'm not even taking any hard and fast stances if I have some definitive answer because I'm some aficionado. No, I'm an American citizen who pays attention and votes. That's what I do. And I encourage you to go to the polls and vote. No matter which side you're voting for, go to the polls, make your voice heard. Don't sit up there and be silent. Don't be a participant in the process. Barack Obama said it during his speech during the Democratic National Convention in 2016. You got to get in it. You got to be a participant. You can't just sit on the sidelines. This ain't about yes, he will. It's about yes, we can. Remember all of that? Well, you need participation in order for that to happen. And also, you need sense, like common sense, like paying attention and seeing the tea leaves and understanding what's going on here. This does correlate. Biden's refusal to step aside does correlate with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And in that instance, it cost you a seat on the courts for the Supreme Court. And we see what has transpired since then, Roe v. Wade, along with various other things. Again, I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you what the facts are. And so now here we are again, and what we got is a situation where we got to look at it, and it's like, listen, this is what it's going to come down to. It's going to cost you the presidency. And why is it going to cost you the presidency? Because you want to stay the course. When staying the course has clearly worked against you in the recent past, you're going to do it again? You're going to do it again. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.